All over the world, many people go missing every year, but some seem to do so under highly unusual circumstances. While these kinds of disappearances are uncommon, they do exist, and they often leave searchers and investigators scratching their heads wondering what has happened. The disappearances we'll be exploring today in this video all have one thing in common: they left absolutely no trace behind at all. But before we get into this video, I just wanted to shout out and thank Surfshark for sponsoring this video. I care a lot about my privacy online, and if you're anything like me in that respect, then I would recommend using Surfshark's VPN. If you're not sure what a VPN is, it's essentially a virtual private network. This is a protection tool which guarantees instant online safety and privacy. Surfshark encrypts all of the data you send online so that no one could see or steal your passwords, private messages, photos, videos, or other sensitive information. But that isn't all. If you've ever tried to watch a documentary like this one or some other strange web series online only to be told that you can't, well, Surfshark is a VPN that has your back. Simply change your location and enjoy uncensored internet. At its core, Surfshark's VPN will protect you from online threats, and by turning on its clean web feature, you can enjoy a clean browsing experience free from annoying pop-up ads, malware, trackers, and phishing attempts. If you're going abroad or you use public Wi-Fi, then Surfshark will also prevent your data from being shared with strangers. Encrypt your data with Surfshark now, and you can be sure that you'll be safe from hackers, criminals, and other forms of surveillance. Surfshark is offering a massive discount to Top Mysteries viewers, so go to surfshark.deal/mysteries and use the code MYSTERIES for 83% off and an extra month for free. There's a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's no risk to try it out. Find the link in the description below. In the early part of the 18th century, Owen Parfitt, along with his family, lived in a small town in the west of England known as Shepton Mallet. Shepton Mallet is a civil parish in the Mendip district of Somerset, with a population today of approximately 10,000 people, though that will have been far fewer over 250 years ago. It's unclear how many siblings Owen actually had, but it is understood that he did have one older sister named Mary, who was 15 years older. During his younger years, Owen was apprenticed by his father and put to work as a tailor. It was stated that he learned this trade well, but hated sewing day in and day out. Owen grew tired of this and eventually enrolled as a soldier. For many years after enlisting, Owen was somewhat forgotten. His parents had passed away at this point, and all that was left was Mary. Sometimes she would receive reports stating where in the world he was on active duty, but by and large she often had no idea where her younger brother was. But eventually, Owen did return to Mary, though many years had passed and he was now crippled and suffered harshly from rheumatism. He did say that he loved his time serving, but it was clear that the time spent fighting had taken its toll. While Owen was still able-bodied in the sense that he could still walk, his movements were very slow. His plan was to get back into tailoring to help support himself and Mary, who were now back living together. Their house was just off the main street where the garden connected to it. This was quite a rural home at the time, and it was completely surrounded by forestry and fields for miles in every direction. There was a nice, small community in the area, and Owen would often sit in the garden and talk with some of his friends who he met there. However, over time, Owen's rheumatism only got worse, and in the end he couldn't walk, or even move much without help. Towards the end, and for years now, he could barely even move his hands, never mind his feet or legs, which makes his disappearance just that much stranger. As said, Owen was 65 years old and Mary was now 80, so she was quite a bit older, but did care for Owen. However, she had gotten much weaker and struggled to move him by herself. So in the afternoon of a June day in 1768, Mary asked one of her neighbours by the name of Susanna Snook, who lived no more than 50 yards away, to come and help her. Together, they managed to take Owen to his usual chair in the garden. Owen always wore comfortable night clothing at this point and always had his coat with him in the garden. After Susanna made Owen comfortable, she went back inside to Mary and then left for her home through the back door. Now, this is where things get bizarre. Mary had planned to sit with Owen outside in the garden, but first wanted to tidy the cottage. This took her approximately 30 minutes, and when she went outside to join Owen, he wasn't there. She looked around briefly, but he was nowhere to be seen. She then went to retrieve Susanna, who was left dumbfounded and had no idea where he could have gone. Remember, this is a man who can barely move at this point, and yet somehow the garden seat was empty and Owen was nowhere to be found. To make matters even stranger was the fact that the nearby fields surrounding the cottage were full of people as it was the haymaking season, and yet no one had seen anything. Mary was obviously distraught, and Susanna had another look round and asked Mary if she had heard anything, but she hadn't. Susanna also detailed that the chair was left in the same position as she had left it. The pair raised the alarm, and the neighbours, alongside those working in the fields, got together and made a thorough sweep of the area. This included around the cottage, the fields, the nearby forestry and the town, but there was no sign of him. This was regarded as highly unusual given his condition and the fact that he really shouldn't have been able to have gotten very far. In addition to this, nearby ponds and wells were dragged, ditches were scoured along with outhouses, but these searches didn't find a single trace as to where Owen had gone. Here's a quote from author Mrs. Lang, who wrote about this disappearance in her book titled The Strange Storybook. Why would anyone wish to hide a harmless old crippled man in any of these places? It didn't make sense. Nobody stopped to ask how this could have been done in broad daylight. But in spite of the thorough nature of the hunt, which did not cease even during a sharp thunderstorm, and went on all that night and the next day, neither then nor later was any trace ever found of Owen Parfitt. That was an old publication that dated back to 1912 and was the oldest piece of documentation that I could find in regards to this disappearance. David Politis often talks about bad weather hitting the area when a disappearance like this takes place, and I thought that was interesting. Dr. Butler, who would be the future Bishop of Lichfield, took a particular interest in this disappearance, though it isn't clear why. Dr. Butler led the investigation as to what may have happened, but unlike today's times, things were not documented so thoroughly. Dr. Butler first questioned as to whether Owen had been taken by someone, but conceded that it was very unusual that nothing was heard. He also detailed that if that was the case, then the many people in the fields should have seen or heard something. He also inquired as to whether Owen was actually crippled or not, and whether he simply intentionally disappeared. However, this was disputed pretty much immediately, with locals telling him that he hadn't been on his feet in years. Bizarrely, there was a rumour that a person who fit Owen's description had been wandering near Frome, roughly 12 miles away in a field, but that was deemed as impossible. Some bones were eventually found near the area in 1814, but they were discovered as belonging to a female who had passed away years prior. The locals attributed Owen's disappearance with demons, stating that they believed that he had been taken by them. To this day, no one knows what happened to Owen Parfitt or where he went. Dr. Butler said that he gave up and stated that it was an impossible riddle. To quote many articles on this disappearance, Owen seemed to have disappeared into thin air. Rosemarie Kunst, 70 years old at the time of her disappearance, was a confident and experienced outdoors woman who loved to go hiking and camping. Rosemarie was married to Bud Kunst, and unfortunately, the pair were involved in a car accident in the February of 1999. This incident would lead to Bud passing away. Needless to say, Rosemarie was left devastated by this loss and spent most of her time alone or with her family, but over time she did start to open up again. 18 months after this incident, Rosemarie decided that it was time to get back out into the world, as she felt that it would be therapeutic and would help with her recuperation. So on the 18th of August 2000, Rosemarie decided to make the trip to Spirit Lake in California to hike in the wilderness around the area. This was a backpacking trip with the Earth Circle group based in Wyaka, California, and is an organization run by Native American Carrick Chief and Elder Charlie Red Hawk Tom. This group would annually visit the remote Spirit Lake area of the Marble Mountains Wilderness, part of the Klamath National Forest and west of Mount Shasta. The lake is only accessible from one direction, with steep banks around it and tree cover, making access difficult apart from the trail at the northern end of the lake. Unfortunately, I couldn't find out much about this lake and why it was named as such, only that it's a 21-mile, lightly trafficked out and back trail located near Somers Bar, California. AllTrails.com states that it features beautiful wildflowers and that it is rated as moderate in terms of its difficulty. Red Hawk and his group travel to Spirit Lake once a year to hold spiritual ceremonies at the site. It was reported that Rosemarie was eager to do this as she was hoping to reconnect with her late husband's spirit. These ceremonies consisted of dances and other such things with the intention of helping to bring their Native American ancestors back down to the earth. On the 17th of August 2000, this ceremony would be repeated with Rosemarie present. The group set up camp around the lake and, having done this for years, were very prepared. They had plenty of food and water and everyone present had pitched their tents. After preparing the site, the entirety of the group, including Rosemarie, participated in their spiritual practices which they believed would make contact with the ancients. I'm not sure what time the ceremonies ended, but afterwards the group took to their tents and went to bed. The following day, Red Hawk laid out plans for the day and said that they were going for a day's hike and would return to the camp that evening. It's not clear why, but Rosemarie declined this invitation and instead wanted to do her own, shorter hike. Perhaps she didn't feel like she could hike for the entire day. But whatever the case may be, Rosemarie asked Red Hawk's 12-year-old son, Charlotte, if he wanted to do some lighter hiking with her instead. Charlotte declined, however, preferring to go with his father. With that, Rosemarie got some of her belongings together, including an early prepared lunch and some water, and headed off towards Woolies Creek, which is on the southern part of Spirit Lake. It was at some point during this hike that Rosemarie went missing. What was particularly interesting about this, and what made this disappearance somewhat unusual, was that the southern part of the lake had no obvious exit, other than going back the way in which you would enter that section. The only other way out otherwise would be to first travel much further south and ascend steep hillsides of up to a 70-degree angle. Something that no one could believe this 70-year-old woman could have achieved, perhaps not even with help. Red Hawk and the rest of his Earth Circle group returned to the camp at around 5 PM and quickly realised that Rosemarie wasn't present. Red Hawk dispatched some members of the group to Woolies Creek and they searched until 1:30 AM the following Saturday morning, but they returned and said that there was no sign of her. The group struggled, but did manage to find a phone signal, and it was then reported to the Siskiyou Sheriff's Department, and they were now aware of the situation. The Sheriff's Department acted quickly, and search dogs, helicopters, and rescue crews from 3 separate counties arrived on scene. At this point, I'd like to read a short extract from an article by sfgate.com who covered this incident. The official search, which began at daybreak Saturday, involved 2 helicopters, search dogs, and about 50 people from Martin, Shasta, and Siskiyou counties. Grizz Adams said mountain lions and black bears are common to the area, but attacks are almost unheard of. He said that it is more likely that she had fallen and was unconscious, but we should have found evidence of such an occurrence. She is not close and not in any obvious spots. The search dogs have not picked up her scent, nor has a dog that is trained to find bodies. One of Rosemarie's family members, known as Vicky, stated that it just seems like she disappeared into thin air. They're not finding any signs, nothing, it just seems unreal. The area was scoured, but no trace of Rosemarie was ever found. The incident commander of this search was Grizz Adams, and this is what he had to say. To go out for a short walk and to just disappear without any trace is difficult to comprehend. Usually, there will be some kind of a trace. I'm not sure what happened here. This disappearance occurred 19 years ago, and to this day, no trace of Rosemarie has ever been found. So what exactly happened here? There was no evidence of a struggle or animal predation. The dogs never picked up her scent, leading Grizz to state that that must mean that she couldn't be close. But that raises a strange question: where did she go? In the end, there are no real answers to Rosemarie's disappearance, and the searchers present were left dumbfounded. On the 4th of July 2012, 65-year-old Paul Michael Mettrie disappeared from Mount Marathon in Alaska. As you might imagine, given the name of the mountain, this is a mountain used to host races on it. However, despite its name, this area isn't famous for how far the race stretches, but rather how unforgiving the route is. The runners start in the city of Seward and run approximately half a mile to the foot of Mount Marathon. Upon reaching the mountain, the participants have to make the ascent up the mountain, which I've read as being described as more of a scrabble up 2,900 feet, straight up cliffs, mud and shale. At which point they reach the checkpoint before having to descend the mountain again and reach the finishing line back in Seward. According to runnersworld.com, all of this occurs in 3.1 to 3.5 miles depending on your route, and on trails so close to town that spectators waiting at the finish line can follow nearly every step even high on the mountain. We'll get into this later, but I found that to be particularly noteworthy and is probably something worth remembering as we go forwards, given that they are effectively stating that the runners can be seen by the crowd even up on the mountain. It's worth mentioning that injuries are not uncommon during this marathon, but no one has ever passed away or gone missing until Independence Day of 2012. The weather on this particular day was not good. It was windy, rainy and cold, roughly 8 degrees Celsius or high 40s Fahrenheit. Tom Walsh was a race steward who had completed this race every year for 16 years prior to 2012 and was a passion of his. Tom was present on the day that Paul went missing. Given his experience on the mountain, Tom would always wait at the top to ensure the others had made it. The race started at around 3:15 PM that day, and Tom managed to reach the top at around 5:54 PM. As more racers made it to the checkpoint at the top, lots of them waited together for around 45 minutes to ensure everyone was present. They then made their way back down the mountain and saw Paul. Paul asked how far away he was from the top. Tom and the others told him that it was around another 200 feet, and with that he went on his way. They estimated that it should have taken him around an hour and a half to make it to the top and back down to the finishing line. However, Paul never came back down, and after waiting for some time he was reported missing to the authorities and the search was on. The area started to get foggy around the time, and as mentioned, the weather already wasn't great. According to strangeoutdoors.com, search and rescue teams were called onto the mountain at around 8 PM by his wife Peggy, with temperatures falling and rain worsening. By 2 AM, an Alaska State Troopers helicopter equipped with infrared radar was scanning the mountain. Searchers worried that if he wasn't already injured, he probably had hypothermia because of his light clothing, exhaustion and freezing weather. The next morning, the 210th Rescue Squadron of the Alaska Air National Guard, which specializes in searching for crashed pilots and missing hikers, arrived with its HH-60 PAVE helicopter for another infrared scan. A team of up to 60 searchers crawled around the mountain looking everywhere, even the other side of the mountain, away from the race course. 4 days after Paul disappeared, the official rescue attempt was called off, though the Seward Volunteer Fire Department kept looking. A cadaver dog was sent into the area, and friends paid for and analysed high-resolution photographs of the mountain. Thousands of hours were spent on that mountain. Firemen, nor state troopers, search dogs, or anyone else found even a single trace as to where he might have gone. No footprints were reported, no signs of a struggle, no items belonging to Paul. There was nothing found, and the searchers commented that this was highly unusual. They said that they expected to find something that would give them an indication of what happened. After the official search reached its conclusion sometime in mid-July, volunteers continued to comb the area, but nothing has ever been found. Let this sink in for a moment. The route is approximately 1.5 miles up, followed by another 1.5 miles down. There were hundreds of runners within the view of the thousands of fans watching, and yet Paul managed to disappear, leaving no trace behind. What happened? The dogs never picked up his scent, thermal detection equipped helicopters never found anything, and as mentioned, there were no clues left behind. While Paul hadn't ascended Mount Marathon before, it's not like he wasn't experienced with the outdoors. Many of his friends stated that he was a very talented outdoorsman and couldn't believe that he had gone missing. Paul undertook many wilderness races and entered into cross-country skiing competitions despite not having much experience, but always managed to finish in the end. He was always out sailing and camping with friends and somehow managed to find the time to achieve a PhD in business and administration and worked at a local Air Force base for 18 years. Peggy recalled that when Paul's envelope arrived confirming that he would be taking part in the marathon, it read, "Do not make July 4th race your first trip up Mount Marathon." After reading that, she and their youngest daughter did try to talk him out of doing it, but he was already set on it. Another attempt was made the night before the race. The runners were called to meet up at the local school's gymnasium, where they were told, "If you have not been up that mountain before, you should consider going home right now, and you should not be in the race." Obviously, the organisers did feel that this event would be too much for someone who hasn't been on the mountain before, despite the trail being clearly marked for the run. At some points early on during the search, it secretly became a recovery mission rather than a rescue mission because of the weather conditions. One question that came up frequently was, where did he go? This might be an obvious question, but the searchers couldn't figure it out. Even after plenty of time had passed as the snow had melted, nothing was revealed. The best the team could come up with was that something sudden must have taken place. The final hope was that when autumn hit the area, this would allow for more visibility, but still, nothing was found. Paul was the only person that has ever gone missing during the Mount Marathon run. And not only did he disappear, but the circumstances baffled everyone involved. Where did Paul go? Please do leave a like if you liked the video, or a dislike if you didn't. Feel free to share your honest opinion, I'd like to hear your thoughts. And I'd just like to take a moment to thank all of you that have subscribed to the channel and who share these videos. I appreciate it a lot and I can't thank you enough. And I'd like to say a massive thank you to my patrons who make these videos possible, so thank you very much to those who have signed up. Anyway, do let me know what you thought of this one and you'll find all of the sources and links in the description below. And remember to check out Surfshark, they are offering a limited time deal now for Top Mysteries viewers, available in the video description. Get 83% off a 2-year plan and an additional month free at surfshark.deal/mysteries with the code mysteries. Get yourself protected and enjoy the internet free from censorship. And remember, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's no risk to try it out. As always, thank you very much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, remember to like and subscribe if you haven't already, it helps me a lot. I hope that you have a great day or evening depending on where you are. Be safe guys, and I'll catch you soon. Peace.